Mama hates being cold, and it's my job to make sure she stays warm. It's a big job, but I've got broad shoulders and we're going to get it done. Hey, Provident Preppers, I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Kylene, and it is Preparedness Month. And for the entire month of September, we have joined Michelle with Big Valley Living, and we are participating in 30 days of preparedness. This is a really good way to ramp up your preparedness before crazy stuff happens soon. So thank you, Michelle, for inviting us. We are honored to rub shoulders with these amazing people. But now it's time to get down to business.
Yes, it is. Our topic today is that of power outage, and specifically winter power outage preparedness. And this is a super important topic for a lot of us that live in cold country. There are some of you that it's not going to matter too much, but for a lot of us, this is a big deal and it is dangerous.
So for today, we are going through step by step exactly what we recommend you do or anyone does to prepare for a winter power outage. But before we get started with that, we'd like you to take a minute and think about your specific circumstances. What we're talking about is going to be general. But for instance, if the power goes out and you are dependent on oxygen, how are you going to run your oxygen concentrator? What if you are diabetic and you need to keep your insulin cold? There are definitely some factors that we are not going to cover in depth today. So if any of those apply to you, please think very carefully about it. Leave comments and we'll try and see if we can help you out with some of those. But these are going to be really basic, very important basic for everyone, including you. So let's get started.
The first area we want to discuss is that of light. Now, this may seem a little weird that that would be the first priority, but if this happens in the middle of the night, and it does sometimes, you need to be able to see where you're going and know what you're doing without stumbling around and getting hurt. So this is critically important.
One of the things that we realized when we did our little grid down adventure, we turned off the power in the middle of January when we had a bunch of little kids. Light was super important. And so that's another reason why it's up here at the front. But there's another couple things that we learned. One was that originally I had planned on taking care of all of our needs with candles. Well, candles are pretty exciting. Yeah. And the flame is totally fun. Our kids started sticking everything flammable into the candles. And we very quickly discovered that open flame in a family with small children or teenagers or
yeah, I was gonna say, let's be clear here. There was more than just the kids that were playing in the fire, and it wasn't me.
You weren't there. I was totally responsible. I was responsible for a lot of things.
Yeah.
Candles can be a great backup. It's a very low light and you are still producing some toxins into the air, just mildly. But think about it, if all you have are a whole bunch of scented candles, all of those scents combined can be really overwhelming. And then you need to make sure that you have an ignition source to be able to light them. So this is not our favorite thing at all. My favorite is hybrid lights, hands down, because they're solar renewable lights, are rechargeable, and most of them have ports so that you can charge your cell phone, which could come in very handy. You need lights for every member of your household because there is a huge amount of security in having your own light. So that's really important.
And there are several different kinds of light that you need.
So if we're playing cards around the table, lanterns would be great. If I'm going from one place to another, a lantern is a great option, but you definitely need area lighting.
And I love my headlamp. This thing keeps my hands free and allows me to do what needs to get done without dropping my light or whatever.
You'll need to make sure that you have that task lighting so that you could read or you can knit or you can continue to do whatever it is that you need to do. One of the things that we think are really important when you have kids, these are cheap glow sticks. And especially even when the grandkids come over and they're spending the night at grandma's, it's a strange place. If they can just hold on to that glow stick, it's very comforting and makes them happy. And these aren't that expensive, especially if you buy them around the 4th of July. If you are interested in the hybrid lights, which I would highly recommend, this one from Hybrid Lights, it has magnets on the bottom, so you could stick it to the hood of a car, or you can just hang it. And this one I find super helpful all the time. And I just keep them in my office window and they just maintain a charge. That way I always know where they are. Do you know where all your flashlights are?
And have the batteries corroded and destroyed them, which has happened in our home, so yeah.
So if you're using regular flashlights, that's great. That's a good choice. But make sure that you have fresh batteries. And like John here, he won't let me store the batteries inside the flashlight. So if I'm going to use them, not only do I have to figure out where the flashlight is, I have to figure out where the batteries are, and then I have to put them together in the dark. But he's really a little bit uptight about storing batteries and things. So,
Yes.
so that's why I like these. He can't take the batteries
Hybrid
out.
light has saved our marriage because there's no batteries for me to take out and they don't leak and cause a problem. And of course, the safety guy always has to pipe in here. Make sure that you have working carbon monoxide and fire and smoke detectors. They are so important. Make sure that you, on a regular basis, check the batteries, change the batteries. A lot of them now have 10-year batteries, so you don't have some of those same problems. But we also recommend that you have a digital readout carbon monoxide detector. Whatever you got going on, you can keep an eye on making sure that there's no problem happening.
If I'm burning candles, he's got this out there.
That and this. Now, I've never had to use it yet, so, this is a good thing. But making sure you have a good fire extinguisher close by, because in a disaster kind of situation is not a time when you want to have a bigger problem. So make sure that you have the safety tools that you need to keep you safe. And because I'm married to Kylene, we have this little cabinet here. Now it has first aid, it's got a fire blanket, 2 fire extinguishers, because she just loves to tinker with fire. And this is a great place. We have this built-in cabinet that we put in our kitchen and 2 other places in our home, just so that we would have what we need when we need it quickly.
Number 2 is shelter. Super important that as soon as that power goes out, you get to work on your shelter. The power outage may only be for an hour. It may be 2 weeks. You just don't know to begin with, so it really pays to just go ahead and plan. Go ahead and execute your plan and make sure that you get started. So the first thing you're gonna do is you're going to close all of your windows. You're gonna close your blinds, pull any drapes or curtains that you have in front of it, because your windows are one of the places where you lose the most amount of heat. The goal is to keep the heat in and the cold out.
And make sure you find any other cold air entry points and get them sealed up. Maybe a gap under a door. Whatever you can do using painter's tape or rags or plastic and tape, whatever you can do to seal off those cold air entry spots, get it done.
Now, you have already planned in advance which room you are going to hang out in, right? So now is the time to go close all of those other interior doors and isolate that room. Whatever you need to do, if you need to hang up blankets, this is the room where you're going to keep the heat in and the cold out. And as soon as that's done, it's time to gather all of your warm stuff. We want blankets, nice, anything that's going to be nice and warm. As I learned in our thing, we need hats. Hats, yep. So much will help to keep you warm. Layering is important because you don't want to sweat, because that creates a whole nother issue. But make sure that you have all kinds of warm things, because you might not be able to have any other heat in your home. And this shelter that you have might be all you have. So adding that additional sheltering to your body to stay warm, important.
Part of that is having blankets. Now, when we did our grid down experiment where we turned off our power, we haven't been the same since.
We haven't been the same, or I haven't been the same?
Well, mostly you, but
I have issues now, serious issues.
Blankets don't go in the trash anymore. Blankets get put in tubs so that they are available, because blankets, we found out blankets were so important for so many things, for isolating areas, obviously for staying warm. We had, 6 or so on our bed because it was that cold.
It was that cold.
And so having a supply of blankets is truly important.
You won't realize it right now because when you go to bed at night, you still have a heater and you don't ever get that cold. But when it comes to being that cold, you need that extra insulation. You need them for over windows or doorways or all kinds of places. So make sure that you have plenty of blankets stored and all of the winter clothes that you might need to survive without any alternative heat. The last thing you need to do is know how to create a micro environment. This is the time. If I didn't know when my power was coming back on, I'm going to be setting up my tent in my living room, because the microenvironment, what it does is it keeps your body heat in that one nice little place. So if you've got a big family tent, you can do all kinds of fun things in that tent and play cards and just live there. We got this idea from a friend of mine, Becky, she's amazing, but her parents lived through the Alaskan earthquake in 1964. Mm-hmm. And they're in Alaska, and their fireplace is compromised in the earthquake. So they had no form of alternative heat. They survived that frigid winter because they set up a family tent in the middle of their living area. This is so cool. Think about, you might not have a tent. A tent would be ideal. But what about when you were a kid? Did you ever play tents, right? Did you ever set up these little forts and have more comfortable places to sleep? If you have a bunk bed, you could throw blankets over the top bunk and both of you sleep in the twin size bed and you'll stay so much warmer. When we did our little power out experiment that traumatized me for life, we had 2 little pup tents. They were like $15 on clearance from Walmart.
Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, Winnie the Pooh, and I think one was Mickey Mouse or something. But we set them up for the kids, and I dressed the little kids in their blanket sleepers, and they had their sleeping bags, and I tucked them in the boys in one little pup tent and the girls in the other. And then John and I went to bed in our bed because I'm going to sleep in my bed. And we literally had this huge pile of blankets on us. And in the middle of the night, I sat up with a start and I was certain I had killed my children. They were freezing to death out there. So I went and I unzipped the little tent, and it was so funny because there was a whoosh of hot air that hit me, and the kids are laying on top of their sleeping bags going, they were so hot. So this is an important principle to remember. Whatever you need to do to create that microenvironment, it can make all the difference in your level of comfort.
Number 3 is figuring out how you are going to provide some warmth, some heat.
This one's really important. So in our experiment, the first few days, we were trying to survive without anything. And I had a lot of issues. I actually got hypothermia. I couldn't figure out why I was so cold, and I couldn't quit shaking. And I actually ended up going across the street to a neighbor's home to sit by their fireplace in their warm house to recover. And so that was a really good lesson to me, that you do have to be really careful about that. But then we decided, okay, it's time for us to use some alternative heat. And the Mr. Buddy heater is actually what I had. I took it with me everywhere.
And it does an awesome job. There's several varieties, including bigger ones, smaller ones, all kinds of buddy heaters that are safe to use indoors and provide a lot of welcomed heat.
There's a couple things about the buddy heaters we have to be careful of. One is that they can't be used at really high elevations because the oxygen sensor won't work. The other is that you can use these little 1-pound propane canisters, or you can use the bigger propane canister. The tank has to stay outside, but the hose can come in and you can attach it to one of these. So storage becomes the real problem with the propane. You don't want to ever store them in your house. But my very favorite heating device now is this Vesta. Now I can't pick it up and carry it everywhere like I could that. So that is definitely a plus with that. But this takes canned heat or safe heat. The cheapest place we found to buy it is Sam's Club. A flat, last time I checked, of 12 cans was about $20. So yeah, that's a lot of heat for that amount of money, but it stores very safely indoors. Now, you wouldn't want to store 100 cases of it in your house. but smaller amounts would be just fine stored inside. So this Vesta, it has a
Peltier device, which means it converts heat into electricity to run that fan. So you don't need any batteries, you don't need cords. That device automatically just starts up once that gets hot under this fan, and it starts blowing out some warm air, and that really feels nice. So having that moving warm air makes a big difference.
And something you can safely burn inside your home. Now, anytime you're burning anything, you always need to be really careful that you have your carbon monoxide detector with a digital readout,
your fire extinguisher, and of course smoke and fire alarms. So make sure they are all in working order.
And we'll talk about this in just a minute, but one of the other reasons why this is so amazing is because I can cook with it too. Now this, I just went and got it out of my car kit, and it is my emergency heater for my car. Now, I've got all of these little tea lights. This isn't the best or the most efficient, or it's not gonna work anywhere near as well as this does, or either of these. But sometimes all you can afford is a used can with a lid to store stuff in. And then what I do is I just put the tea lights in the bottom here, and then I'll light them. You have to be careful, this will get really warm. So make sure that this is not setting on a flammable surface. I would put something under it that's not flammable. And then you can just go like this and warm your hands. It will be too hot to touch on the side, but it's a great, very inexpensive source of heat. So this, if you're really doing the budget-friendly thing, this is a great plan.
And let's not forget about things like hand and foot warmers. Make sure you use them carefully according to manufacturer's directions. Our little nephew burned his feet because he put them right on his feet, and
next to the skin.
He got blisters. But they can be an extremely good source. There's also things like these little rechargeable hand warmers. You can put it in your pocket, you can put it in your hand, but of course you're going to have some way of charging this. So there's a variety of things that you can do to make sure you stay warm. The key is to make sure that you figure that out right now and not when you are in the situation.
And be careful with these because they do have a shelf life. And so what happens is as they age, they won't heat up as hot, and then eventually they don't heat up at all. So just be careful with that. You've got to have some way, well, you don't have to. It would be very nice to have some form of alternative heating, because when you get cold, you get really cold, and hypothermia is nothing to mess around with.
And of course there are other options. If you have a gas fireplace and it will operate without electricity, or you have the ability to energize it so that it will run. When we did our little experiment, our fireplace would light, but it didn't have the fan, and it makes such a huge difference when you've got that air movement. Again, moving that warm air is so important.
You'd have to sit right up against it like this to feel the heat, but you could feel some heat, but yeah, that fan makes a huge difference. And this one won't even go on without electricity. So John's had to figure out a way to fix that. And then I have my wood burning stove, and a wood burning fireplace is wonderful when it comes to a winter power outage, but not everybody can do that.
And if you have a wood burning stove, you better make sure you have some firewood stored. I know people who have fireplaces and wood stoves, but I ask them, okay, you've got a good supply of firewood? Well, no, I don't have any. Well, that's a problem. So these are the things we're fixing now so we don't have the problem later.
It is really important that you have the ability to cook and to produce hot water. Now, sometimes granola bars are great. They provide the calories that you need, but they're not going to warm you from the inside out or provide you some balanced nutrition. So if you want to feel better during this event, you really need to be able to have a way to cook indoors. Now, you could cook outdoors, but if we're talking about a winter power outage, are we having problems with rain or snow or wind? Sometimes the weather is as such that you just can't cook outside. Now, in some cases, you might be able to bring something like a propane barbecue. You could bring it inside your garage and leave your garage door open a little bit, because you've got to have that ventilation, right? That's not an indoor thing. But you might have to get a little bit creative there to protect you from the weather. But we really encourage you to have a way to cook indoors. We did a grid down cooking challenge where we went for 30 days without using any regular type of cooking. And it was rough, but we learned a lot. So I'll leave a link for you to that in case you're interested. Canned heat, which is these little guys, are by far my favorite way to cook indoors in an emergency, not because they're the most powerful, but because they're so safe. The best place to buy them, like we talked about, is Sam's Club. You can get a case of 12 of them. Last time I checked, for $20. There's 6-hour cans, and that's a lot of burn time. But you can use those cans either in a folding camp stove like this or in the Vesta. John just took the top of that off.
Right.
So remember how that was the heater? So you just take the top of it off and you can use 1, 2, or 3 cans on it. The reason why I prefer the Vesta to this is because this only allows me to use 1 can. And I'm just gonna get like a little simmer kind of boil, like it'll just have little bubbles, the water will get nice and hot, but it's not actually gonna boil. With the Vesta, if I'm using 2 cans, I can get a decent little boil. And with 3 of them, I can actually cook with a decent sized pot on there and heat up our food. One of the other things to consider is the type of food that you are making during a power outage. You don't want to spend hours slaving in the kitchen, and quite frankly, it's pretty much not possible. So one of the things that we do, these are all meals that we have freeze-dried. You can buy freeze-dried meals. You can use like cans of soup or cans of chili, but this is freeze-dried curry vegetable soup. Oh, so good. And all I have to do to this is add hot water. So that's perfect for this. This is some of John's beans, black beans, Cafe Rio black beans. And this one is refried beans with rice and pico. So these will allow us to eat food that we normally eat just by heating up water. Now you've got beverages, make sure that you've got whatever your warm beverages are. My beverage of choice happens to be herbal teas and hot cocoa, but you also need plenty of good drinking water. 2 gallons per person per day, I would say as much as you possibly can.
Because hydration is so important in all of this. If you get dehydrated in the cold, you're much worse off. So make sure that you do stay hydrated, using water, cocoa, whatever you can, stay hydrated.
As our friends in Texas from the
Polar vortex.
The polar vortex learned, you can melt snow, but it takes a really long time, and a lot of snow melts into just a little bit of water. Just by storing it in advance, you are going to be so much better off, and you'll be able to have a nice hot dinner.
One of the critical aspects of all this is making sure that whatever device you're using is rated for indoor use. There's a lot of people out there and a lot of information on the internet that's totally bogus and wrong and dangerous.
Don't trust AI.
Yes.
AI will steer you wrong.
You make sure that it's rated for indoor use and that you can safely use it indoors. And don't forget about the safety things that we've already discussed also.
There are some butane stoves that are rated for indoor use, and there are some that are not. So make sure you're very careful. This one that we have here says it has to be used in a well-ventilated area. Now, when we did our experiment, this was actually one of my favorite things because the flame is hot, it is fast, you don't have to fuss about anything, it just works. And so it is a good thing, but you know, if you have to leave your window open a crack on one side of the room and on the other, is that something that you want to do? It might be. It all depends on the weather and what's happening. The other thing is that those cartridges, they have to be stored very carefully. They can't freeze and they can't get too hot. And you shouldn't store a lot of them in your home at all because they're like these little bombs. If there is a fire, then suddenly you've got a whole bunch of these wonderful cans of butane that are just ready to blow. So I would be super careful where you store them, but it is a fantastic device.
Number 5 is community and socialization. One of the most important things that we can do is be aware of others. Check on our neighbors, our family, our friends. Make sure that things are going okay with them. And if you aren't going to be okay in your own home, where are you going to go? That you need to make those kinds of arrangements now, and you need to understand the things that you can do to contribute. We don't freeload. If we're going to be somewhere where we're not at home, we're going to make sure that we're making a difference, that we're doing our part and helping out.
So we should talk about that just a little bit. For us, we have been blessed to have backup power a wood burning stove. We've pretty much got everything we need to be okay during a winter power outage. But you know what? We have room to have some of our family and friends over.
Right.
And so while we can't host everyone, it would make sense that we invite somebody over. So like if you were one of our neighbors and you needed a backup oxygen concentrator and you didn't have backup power for it, well, maybe that's a good place for you to come. Maybe we need to make arrangements for you to be able to come over here so that you would be okay for a little while. But, you know, when you're living with somebody, you've got to make sure that that's a good, okay situation too. We're not going to just let a stranger in our house to do that. So you need to develop these relationships, think it through, talk about it. And like Jonathan said, be a contributor. Yeah, you don't have to contribute the wood burning stove, but is there something that you can do to contribute to make it a better situation?
And as you can see here, my wife loves games.
I do.
And they're awesome as a way of socializing, as a way of getting things off your mind. Sometimes you just need to do something different to kind of let things go and be okay. So games are an awesome way to do that.
Just that emotional stimulation will actually go a long way to helping you feel more comfortable and warm. And number 6 is
Backup power, which is, of course, one of my very favorite things.
next to sanitation.
Yeah, next to sanitation. It's, you know, they're real close there. But anyway, you may have medical needs, medical equipment that you need to run. Always it's nice to have something to run your freezer and refrigerator. And things like communications, your laptop, your cell phone, a router, all these kinds of things. We want to be able to run these things to the extent that they're necessary. Obviously, we can't run everything that we want to run, but let's make sure that we have the critical ones, and especially the medical.
John's always calling them critical loads, and he's trying to define what my critical loads are instead of what he thinks critical loads are. And there are some things that I think are really important. Now, he touched on the medical equipment. Critical. You're right. If you are on an oxygen concentrator, if you need a refrigerator to keep your insulin cool, you know, those are critical. Well, I think my washing machine is also critical.
Yeah, that got established a couple of years ago that the washing machine was critical, and I agree. Doing laundry by hand, we are very spoiled. Yeah, decide what your critical loads are and make sure you have what you need to be able to run those. Now, that might include something like a power station. This is on the lower end of things, a smaller one. They come a little bit smaller, but they come much, much bigger. You have to be able to know what you need to meet your loads. And we have some great videos to help kind of zero in on that. This is a nice little solar power bank. It'll hold a lot, and then you can use it to charge your phone.
Because the ability to charge your phone is really important. Being able to communicate, to get information and to send information, really important. This is a flashlight, but all of hybrid lights have a solar panel that you can also use to charge some of your devices like your cell phone. So that's one of the reasons why I think these are really important too. But the ability to communicate, what's happening with the storm, when's the power coming back on, all kinds of different things. It's really important that you know that. So a little bit of backup power, a really good idea. Yeah. A lot of backup power.
Maybe more than we really need, but let your wife define what those critical needs are, and you'll be a happy man. Now, a generator is always a good thing to have, but you'd have to make sure that you have fuel for it. And you may want to lock it down when things get rough, because they just tend to disappear. So
the other thing about that, though,
go ahead,
produces carbon monoxide.
Absolutely.
Like, you don't want to put this near any door near your house. There was a couple in our state who actually put one in their garage and ran the cord inside, and just the cord coming through that garage door asphyxiated both of them and killed them. Just that little bit let in enough carbon monoxide. So be super, super careful with anything that produces carbon monoxide.
And I am so impressed because she just became the safety person, and that's awesome. Anyway, decide what you need and let's get it so that we are ready. And now just a few final notes. One of those involves sanitation. What happens to your water and sewer systems if the power's out? Figure that out and make sure that you plan accordingly.
Now is the time to take care of whatever you need to do to make sure if it freezes and you don't have any heat, that your pipes don't freeze. We've got a whole video on that, so if you click the card in the corner, we'll take you to that.
And do you really want to test how you will do in some kind of a winter power outage? Well, let's take it a step at a time. Maybe this weekend you shut off your power. See what you learned from that, and then kind of plan for it to be colder, so you can think about some other things that you will want to do.
Because right now, it's, at least here, it's still really mild. So a power outage would be inconvenient, but not terribly difficult. We probably should have worked our way up to it and not just done it in the middle of January. But, you know, I learned. I'm traumatized forever.
And now for the question of the day. What have you learned from living through power outages? And what are the most important points that you would like to share? Comment below. And thanks for being part of the solution.